All right, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on where you are. Probably good afternoon. Thanks for joining us, despite the ongoing coronavirus concerns, for the first ever online virtual Nefesh B'Nefesh Aliyah Mega. We're very excited to have almost 1,500 people joining us tonight. We recognize that a lot of you are going to have questions about the coronavirus and the impact that it's going to have on your Aliyah. You can be in touch with your Aliyah advisor for any of that. We're not going to touch on that tonight. If you have any questions throughout this webinar, you can simply send them through the chat. I'm joined here tonight by my colleague Nata Katz, who's going to be feeding me your questions. You can also call our call center at 1-866-425-4924. That's 1-866-4-Aliyah. Or you can email mega@nbn.org.il. We're going to get started now. So let's go right into it. We're going to be discussing government Aliyah benefits, the things that you're going to get from the Israeli government when you make Aliyah. One of the things that I usually get asked, or I get asked a lot, is what do I get when I make Aliyah? And the answer is always you get to live in Israel. The benefits that you're getting are not a reason to make Aliyah. There's certainly something to make your life easier when you do make Aliyah, but it's important that you look at them that way, not as an incentive to make Aliyah, rather as a way to ease the making of Aliyah that we all go through. So we're going to start discussing those benefits, but I just want to make sure that you know that we're going to be discussing benefits for Olim. We're not going to be discussing for Toshavim Chozrim. So if you are a Toshav Chozer, please make sure to be in contact with your Aliyah advisor so that you can discuss exactly what that will look like. Let's move along to the first slide, which is how Aliyah benefits are determined. So basically, benefits are determined based on your Aliyah status. When you make Aliyah, you're going to get a status from the Jewish agency. Usually it's going to be Oleh Chadash, or Katin Chozer, or Ezrach Oleh. Whether you're married to a veteran Oleh, whatever your specific status is. We're going to try to be going over the basic par of benefits, which apply to almost all Olim. I'll try to make some distinctions when things are going to be different. And if there's something that you think is about your status that I'm not covering, please feel free to ask Nata or to ask your Aliyah advisor. One of the things that's going to impact benefits the biggest is going to be how long you were in Israel before making Aliyah. So there are 3 different timelines at which your Aliyah benefits start to get impacted. The first is if you've been in Israel for more than 2 years out of the 3 years before Aliyah. And literally, Mishnah Klita will count the days you've been in Israel to make that determination. The second milestone is if you've been in Israel for more than 3 out of the 7 years before Aliyah. And the last milestone is if you've been in Israel for more than 5 out of the 7 years before Aliyah. On our website is a chart of how which benefits are affected in what way. But just be aware that you may lose some benefits depending on how long you've been in Israel before making Aliyah. Another thing that will impact the benefits is if you're married to a previous Oleh, who in the family is the Oleh. All those things are going to be determined. You can speak to your Aliyah advisor about how your specific situation will impact your benefits. Also, each benefit has its own time frame. Certain benefits will have to be used in the first year. Certain benefits are going to have 3 years, so on and so forth. As we go through the benefits, I'm going to discuss the timeline for each benefit. I also want to add here that for the previous stays in Israel, certain stays won't affect the benefits. For example, if you are on Machal or Masa or Sherut Leumi before you made Aliyah, the time you were in each of those different programs will not impact your benefits and the eligibility for those benefits. Okay, and with that, let's move along towards the 3 different government agencies that are responsible for your benefits, or zechuyot. There are 3 different government agencies that are responsible for the benefits. Mishrad HaKlita, which is the Ministry of Absorption, Mishrad HaShikun, which is the Ministry of Housing, and the Tax Authority. And we're going to go through each of these government agencies' benefits and which ones are impacted and which ones have different timeframes and so on. So let's dive right in and go into Mishrad HaKlita benefits. The first benefit, and arguably the one that people know about the most, is the Sal Klita. Sal Klita is money that you are given by the state of Israel for 6 months when you make Aliyah. The amount is totally dependent upon the size of the family making Aliyah. So regardless of financial need or anything else like that, it depends on how many family members, the ages of the family members, and then that's how they determine how much money you're going to be getting from the government. On our website, we have a chart where you can see basically how many family members, what ages, and what the amounts are going to be. In general, a single will get about 18,600 shekel spread out over 6 months. Those 6 months, you're going to have 6 monthly payments, as well as one payment that you're going to get at the airport, and one payment that's going to come in right when you give Misrad HaKlita your bank account information, and they're going to put that in as a sort of bonus payment along with your first payment. You have, as I said, there are 6 monthly payments. The payments have to be collected within 1 year of Aliyah. So even though the time frame says 6 months, you actually have 12 months in which to get those payments. If you travel outside of Israel at any time, those payments are going to be stopped. And then you're going to have to come back to Misrad HaKlita in order to get them restarted. There's a rule now that you have to be in the country for 30 days in order to get those payments restarted. So you're going to have to speak to Misrad HaKlita when you come back from a trip in order to make sure your payments are going to get started. Another thing that a lot of people ask me, a family that's collecting Sal Klita must have a joint bank account. Any married couple that's getting Sal Klita, even if only one of the spouses is eligible for the Sal Klita, must have a joint bank account in order to get this benefit. Okay, so I'm going to ask Nata if there's any questions.
Yes, somebody asked if you can just if you can define the terms of Aliyah.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, someone was asking me. I'm sorry. Sometimes I take a couple of terms that I mentioned for granted. I mentioned Oleh, Ezrach Oleh, Katin Choser, Toshav Choser. Let me define those terms. An Oleh Chadash is someone who is making Aliyah, who has never made Aliyah before, is eligible for all the benefits as a new Oleh, a new immigrant to Israel under the law of return. An Ezrach Oleh is someone who was born outside of Israel to one or more Israeli parents. So technically they're already an Israeli citizen, but they are eligible for basically all the benefits of Aliyah. A Katin Choser is someone who was born in Israel, but left before the age of 14, and is now coming back after the age of 18. Again, this is someone who is already an Israeli citizen, but is still eligible for almost all of the Aliyah benefits. I'm going to mention which one they are not when we get to it. In addition, Toshav Choser, a Toshav Choser is someone who was a citizen of Israel and is now returning and is a returning citizen. In general, Nefesh B'Nefesh does not assist Toshavim Chozrim, and they do not get the benefits of an Oleh Chadash, but there may be circumstances, particularly if they are married to an Oleh Chadash, where they may be included in some or all of the benefits. I hope that answers the question. Okay, great. So now that we've talked about Sal Klita, which again is the one that most people think about when they think about the Aliyah benefit, we're going to move on to another one. The next one is free health coverage. So health coverage, and say a word about healthcare here in Israel. Healthcare in Israel is socialized. Everyone is covered by the government of Israel for their healthcare. Bituach Leumi, the National Insurance Institute, are the ones that cover it. However, they don't administer it. The Kupat Cholim, the healthcare provider, is the one who actually administers the healthcare. So Bituach Leumi is kind of like Social Security and healthcare all wrapped up in one. For the first year after you make Aliyah, you're eligible for a free year of Bituach Leumi, of not paying in to the health coverage. This only covers the basic health coverage. It doesn't cover any kind of supplemental coverage. So the Sal Briut, which is the health basket, the basic basket of coverage, is covered for the first year. Any supplementary coverage, which are products that the kupot cholim, the healthcare providers, sell as private companies, as products, anything of that is not covered free for the first year. But if you sign up for it within 3 months of your Aliyah, there's no waiting period for the additional coverages. If you are employed, if you get work right after Aliyah, you automatically start paying into Bituach Leumi like any other Israeli. So if you're lucky enough to start working right after Aliyah, you'll see the Bituach Leumi come out of your paycheck as a tax, usually about 3 to 5%, and you will not get the free year of health coverage. After the first year, you are going to have to start signing up to pay into Bituach Leumi, whether you're working or not. Someone who's unemployed, it's about 175 shekel a month. A student, it's about 128 shekel a month. For retiree, it's about 104 shekel a month. Okay? Someone who was here before on an A1 is not eligible for this benefit. An A1 is a temporary resident visa. If you ever had one, you'll know about it. It's not the kind of thing you can get by accident. So if you were here on an A1, you will not be eligible for the free year of health coverage. And again, the time frame for this is 1 year straight from your date of Aliyah. Okay, next benefit we're going to talk about is Ulpan. Now, Ulpan is basically the Israeli government paying for you to learn Hebrew. The government wants to invest in you to help you better acclimate and have a successful klita. So you want to get out of it as much as you can. So the way it works is you're eligible for free Hebrew studies. There are 2 different kinds of Ulpanim. There's the traditional public option, which are 5-5-5 programs, where you're taking classes 5 days a week, 5 hours a day for 5 months. These are very intensive. They're fully paid for by the Misrad HaKlita. When you choose which Ulpan you want, you'll go to Misrad HaKlita to get a voucher to pay for it. There'll be no money out of pocket on your behalf. There's also something called the private option. There are certain Ulpanim that Misrad HaKlita is willing to subsidize you going to. These tend to be smaller classes, probably fewer hours, fewer days a week for more months, but you will have to pay out of pocket, usually about 7,500 shekel, and you'll be reimbursed by Misrad HaKlita at 3 time periods throughout the Ulpan, dependent upon you completing, I think it's about 80% of your classes. Ulpan location is dependent upon where you live. Actually, let me rephrase that. Ulpan location is dependent upon the address on your Tudat Zehut. So if you live in Yerushalayim, but you've given us the address of your grandma in Arnona for your Tudat Zehut, that is going to be location where Misrad HaKlita expects you to take Ulpan. So make sure that the address you're putting on the Tudat Zehut bears some resemblance to where you're actually going to be living. Explore the Ulpan options. There are many different kinds of Ulpanim. Some cities are going to have many different types of options for you. All the Ulpanim are good for a given value of good, and everybody is different and learns differently. So just because an Ulpan was good for a friend of yours doesn't mean it's going to be good for you. So explore the different Ulpan options, talk to the Ulpanim before signing up for one to make sure that you actually like it. You can often get a voucher for a second Ulpan after you've completed a first Ulpan. That's dependent upon going to Misrad HaKlita and applying for it. So there's that. There is also an option, if you did not do an Ulpan and you want to try for an Ulpan Aleph, even up to 10 years after your Aliyah, you can still apply to Misrad HaKlita for it. In any event, this is one of those things where if you haven't used the benefit, ask Misrad HaKlita if you can get it anyway. Obviously, Hebrew is one of the biggest keys to a successful Aliyah. So Misrad HaKlita wants you to take the Ulpan. So do whatever you can to do that and make sure that you get as much out of it as you can. Next, Misrad, actually I'm going to stop here. Are there any questions? Okay, so we're going to move on to the next slide, the next benefit, which is subsidized higher education. Be aware that subsidized higher education is through Minhala Studentim, which is a department within Mishrad HaKlita. The time frame, there's 2 time frames here to be aware of. The first is you have to start classes within 3 years of Aliyah. The other time frame is an age limit based on what you're going to be studying. You have up to age 27 for a bachelor's, up to age 30 for a master's. The 3 years can be frozen by Army service. However, the age restrictions generally are not frozen by any other means. Okay, so again, this is the time frames with which you have to start classes, not within which you have to finish classes. Okay, we're going to continue with the higher education theme. It's subsidized higher education. I want to be very clear about that. It's not necessarily free. The program has to be recognized by the student authority. Regular university versus international programs. The reason why I say subsidized rather than free is that they will pay up to the amount of a public Hebrew-speaking university degree, which means that some of the international programs that are very popular amongst Olim because they give degrees in English can be significantly more expensive, and therefore they will be subsidized up to the amount of the regular university degree. As I said before, Army service will freeze the 3 years, but it will not freeze the age restrictions. There's no duplication of degree, which means if you have a bachelor's, they will not pay for you to get another bachelor's in most circumstances. If it's possible that if the bachelor's that you want to get is something in a completely different field, Minhala Studentin may be willing to do that, but the decision would be solely at the discretion of Minhala Studentin. Okay? And the final Mishrad HaKlita benefit is the flight benefit, a free El Al flight. The Jewish agency is responsible for the free flight. It's going to be facilitated by Nefesh B'Nefesh. There are many different, well, not many, there are several different flight options, 3 different flight options to be precise. There is the charter flight, which I'm sure you've all seen the videos, where we have the whole flight. It's a big party at Ben Gurion. That generally happens once or twice, always during the summer. There are group flights where we'll have between 35 to 75 Olim on a regular El Al flight. The big benefit of the group flights is that we're with you on the flight, usually from the airport in the United States, usually Newark or JFK, all the way to Ben Gurion, and we help you with the processing at Ben Gurion. And then there's the designated flight. Designated flights are, if the group flight or the charter flight doesn't work out for you time-wise, we'll help you arrange your own flight. Of course, that would be, the timing, it has more flexibility. However, there's no Nefesh B'Nefesh staff with you at either airport. So just be aware of the different kinds of flight options. Whether you're coming on a designated or a group flight, it's only from an El Al hub. There's difference on the luggage allowances based on the different kinds of flights. Normally, whether it's a designated or group, you'll be able to bring 3 bags, up to 50 pounds each. On the charter flight, because everyone on the flight are Olim, we can't allow 3 bags. So it's 2 bags, but we are allowed more on the weight restrictions. So the bags can be up to 70 pounds each. Okay? Free transportation home. That means when you get to the airport, Mishrad HaKlita is responsible for getting you from the airport to your final destination, whether it's somewhere like Modi'in, where it's just a quick taxi ride, Haifa, which is a little bit more of an extensive taxi ride, or even Eilat, where it may even be another flight. One thing I want to talk about here that's very important is don't book your own flight if at all possible. If you book your own flight, trying to get reimbursement from the Jewish agency for your flight is very problematic, and I would not encourage anyone to try that. Okay, before we move along to the second type of benefit, which are the tax benefits, I'm going to see if there's any questions.
Yes, there are a couple questions here. What is the general price of the Israeli Hebrew language master's degrees? What would we be eligible to receive for an international program?
So generally, it's I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I believe it's about 4,000 shekel a semester, something around that.
For the master, it's 22 or 24,000 shekels for the degree.
So it's about 22 to 24,000 shekel for the total master's degree as a whole. What the international programs are, I couldn't tell you. I know that I've seen them range as much as 2 to 3, even sometimes 4 times as much, depending on the program, but that you'd have to be in contact with a specific program. We do have a higher education advisor on staff. You can email education@nbn.org.il in order to speak directly with our higher education specialist to find out more about these specific programs. Okay, is there another question? Okay, we're going to move on.
He was asking about did you talk about the transportation at the airport?
Yes.
So you did?
Yes.
He was asking if they can take a cab as transportation. I imagine it would be hard taking public transportation with 3 bags.
Okay, so let me just go back to the transportation because maybe I wasn't clear. When you get to the airport at Ben Gurion, Misrad HaKlita is responsible for getting you to your final destination. They're responsible for getting you in a cab with all your bags to your final destination. I'll add that they are only responsible for getting you to your final destination. If a non-Oleh comes to greet you at the airport, they are not really allowed to get in that cab with you. So they're responsible for getting you and your bags from Ben Gurion Airport to your final destination. Okay? All right. Next, we're going to talk about tax benefits. Always something that people want to know about. So the first one we're going to talk about is the income tax reduction. The way taxes work here in Israel is if you're I'm going to start if you're an employee in Israel. If you're an employee for an Israeli company, all taxes are payroll taxes. You don't file a tax return at the end of the year in most cases. And the way deductions work are based on a point system. Each point is worth about 219 shekel, although that changes periodically. For the first 18 months after you make Aliyah, you get an additional 3 points. Now, I want you to notice my words here. For the first 18 months after you make Aliyah, not the first 18 months after you start working. So if you don't start working until 12 months after your Aliyah, you will lose 12 months of this benefit. So just be aware of that. So for the first 18 months after Aliyah, you get an additional 3 points, about 11,772 shekel a year that you don't pay in income tax. Not income that's not taxable, but income tax that you don't pay. The next year, it goes down to 2 points, about 5,232 shekel over the year. And for the last 12 months, it goes down to 1 point, which is 2,616 shekel over the year. Couple of things to be aware of. First of all, no matter how many points you have, you can never pay less than 0 income tax. So it will never result in you getting money back. Every Israeli usually gets between 2.25 and 2.75 points straight, just regular. So these points are on top of that. Also, this only affects income tax. It doesn't affect the Bituach Leumi tax that everyone pays. So it's only on income tax reduction. Additionally, there's something called a periphery tax break. Certain communities in the periphery will add even more points on. You can speak to your Aliyah advisor to find out whether or not the community you're planning on moving to gets one of these periphery tax breaks. Typically, they'll be in the north or the south of Israel, so somewhere where they're trying to encourage people to go to. All right. Next benefit is tax break on overseas income. So for 10 years after you make Aliyah, you do not have to pay Israeli income tax on income earned overseas. That's a very loaded term. So before you start saying, oh, I don't have to report any income to Israel, make sure that you speak to an accountant who knows both US and Israeli tax law to confirm that your income is actually eligible for this tax break, okay? Also, again, only on income tax. This does not apply to Bituach Leumi tax. So again, you're going to want to speak to an accountant who knows both the US and Israeli tax law to make sure whether or not you have to pay Bituach Leumi tax on any income earned overseas. Okay, so I want to explain again what Bituach Leumi, since I'm getting a question on it, is. Bituach Leumi is a national insurance institute. Basically, they cover your health care, your pension, but In reality, they cover every benefit that a regular Israeli gets from the government, literally from birth to death. They pay for the hospital stay for the mother, for the maternity benefit, and they pay for your burial when you, after 120, pass away. So literally every benefit you get from the government throughout the course of your life that is not strictly an Oleh benefit will basically come from Bituach Leumi, and you're taxed on that. And it's a tax usually about 3 to 5% of your income, as I said before, or about 175 if you're unemployed, 128 if you're a student, 103 if you're a retiree. Okay. All right. So that is the overseas tax income tax break. Again, don't assume any of your income is eligible for this until you've talked to an accountant who knows both U.S. and Israeli tax law. And your Aliyah advisor can give you a list of people who specialize in that.
2 questions here. Is a U.S. pension income for this benefit, interest, investment, sale of property?
Okay, so I'm getting asked about specific kinds of income, pension, Social Security. I'm not going to answer that question. That's a question for you to discuss with your accountant. Every pension product is different. For me to speculate on that right now without having, frankly, the expertise to do so would be a disservice to everyone. So, but you need to speak to an accountant about it before making that assumption. Okay? Okay. Customs benefits. So for 3 years from your date of Aliyah, you are allowed to send 3 shipments without paying customs tax. The shipments are not free. You still have to pay for the shipment, but you don't have to pay for customs tax or VAT, which can be a significant savings. What's considered a shipment? A shipment is basically anything that would be household goods for one household, okay? The size of the shipment doesn't really matter. A 40-foot container that contains the items to fill a house is one shipment. 1 box of electronic equipment, of home electronic equipment, is 1 shipment. So use your shipments wisely. You can determine, you're the one who determines whether or not you're claiming a shipment as a tax-free shipment. So you can decide whether it is worthwhile for you to use this benefit on the shipment as when you're getting it released. You're also allowed 1 shipment of clothes that you can send before you make Aliyah to arrive before you make Aliyah. Very few people actually do this, but you're allowed to send 1 shipment and not get of clothing ahead of you and not get charged customs tax on that. Okay. This, again, with a 3-year time frame, this is probably the most easily extended benefit of all the benefits that we're talking about. If you're in the Army, if you start being a full-time student within 18 months of Aliyah, or even if you're just out of the country for 6 months straight, this benefit will freeze. Okay, and you'll go back to the Meches, the Customs Tax Authority, to get the new timeline for it when you're ready to use it. Okay. Car benefit. So again, it's the same 3-year tax, same 3-year time frame with the same extensions that are available. Basically, what you do is you're able to get a reduced tax rate for purchase or import. Now, I want to again point out the words I'm using because this is very poorly understood. It's a reduced tax rate. You will still pay tax on it. Normally, an Israeli pays about 92% tax on the purchase or import of a car. An Oleh pays about 77% tax. You're still paying a significant amount of tax, but less. I also said purchase or import. Import can be a used car with certain restrictions. If anyone is considering importing a car, please make sure to talk to your Aliyah advisor before doing that. It's not always recommended or easy, but talk to your Aliyah advisor before you even consider importing a car. You must hold a valid driver's license in order to either purchase a new car or to import your car. During the first year, you can do it with a foreign license, but you will have a signed commitment that you're going to get the Israeli driver's license before the end of the first year, or you're going to have to pay back some money and stop driving. There is something called passport to passport. Passport to passport is where an Oleh buys a car with their Aliyah rights, and then within 4 years wants to sell it. Normally there's a 4-year restriction on selling a car that you've bought or imported with Aliyah rights. If you sell it within the 4 years, you generally have to pay back the tax discount that you got. However, you can sell it passport to passport to another Oleh who still has their benefits without having to pay back any taxes. Before anyone goes rushing off to try to find passport to passport cars, I'll just tell you it's very difficult to find these. No marketplace actually exists. But if you find one, all of the instructions on how to do it are on our website. Now, all of these tax rates that I've been throwing out there, 77, 92, those are only on non-hybrid cars. Hybrid cars have a much more complicated way to distinguish how much tax you're going to pay, but you should understand that hybrid cars come with their own built-in tax break. So you will not get the full hybrid tax break and Oleh tax break. You may get some combination of the two, depending on the hybrid level of the car. For fully electric cars, there will end up being no Oleh tax break because the hybrid break is already more than that. So just be aware, if you're buying a hybrid car, the calculations are going to get a lot more complicated. Okay.
A few general questions.
Okay, that's just things for questions.
What about airline pet fees?
Someone's asking about airline pet fees. I don't know. You'll have to contact our flights department. We do have someone who's an expert. Our flights coordinator will be able to help you with that. You can reach her at flights@nbn.org.il.
Are there ways for kids to learn Hebrew in advance? Do we get help with that?
Someone's asking me about kids learning Hebrew. There are some things called Sha'ot Olim, where the school is technically, the school that the kids go to gets a certain amount of money to teach the children Hebrew. They spend that money however they deem appropriate. You can speak to your Aliyah advisor about certain of the things to talk to, questions to ask the school when determining that. There is also, we've done a Skype tutoring program in the past for people after they've made Aliyah, I think from 2nd to 6th grade. But when you come, speak to your Aliyah advisor about the possibility of signing up your children for the Skype tutoring program. But those are the means for the children. Also, some municipalities will have additional resources. Yerushalayim typically has an Ulpan in the summer for children who made Aliyah that summer. Other communities sometimes have them. But again, you'll speak to your Aliyah advisor about that.
One more. Can you keep your Medicare for America used in Israel? Just read the question.
So someone asked me, can you keep your Medicare in Israel? Medicare will not cover you at all in Israel. You can keep your Medicare to use in the States. You can also choose to cancel your Medicare. I'm not sure how advisable that is. But again, it's something to speak to your Aliyah advisor to determine in your specific situation whether it's worth keeping or canceling your Medicare. But either way, your Medicare will not cover you in Israel. Okay? All right, let's move on. We have a lot to cover. Conversion of foreign driver's license. So this is one of those great, one of the things that I forgot to say at the beginning was that benefits are subject to change. And that's very apropos for this one because this is a benefit that has changed this morning. So there's going to be something on the slide that is going to be technically incorrect, but I'm going to point it out when we get there. You have 5 years with which to convert your foreign driver's license. Your license must be issued before the Aliyah date in order to be eligible for conversion. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The driver's license must be valid at the time of conversion. So if your driver's license is going to expire at some point right after your Aliyah, you may want to renew it so that it's going to be valid at the time. Only a full driver's license can be converted, not a probationary or temporary driver's license. So just be aware of that. It's 5 years. However, just be aware, you're only allowed to drive on your foreign license for 1 year from your date of Aliyah. That has nothing to do with, from your date of entry, not Aliyah. It has nothing to do with Aliyah. It's a treaty between governments about how long they will honor each other's licenses for. So conversion of a foreign driver's license, what that basically means is that you're able to convert your license without taking 27 lessons, usually by taking a conversion test, a driving test, rather than a practical driving test, which is a much simpler and shorter test. But for those details, we're going to go into this slide, which is the slide that as of this morning is no longer correct. So you see here, there are two different procedures. One for people who have had a license for less than 5 years and people who have had a license for more than 5 years. We're going to add a third category, and that is for people who have had their license for less than 2 years. So if you have, I'm going to start with that one. If you have had your license for less than 2 years, you can't technically do a license conversion. They will allow you to take, to get an Israeli license without taking all 27 lessons, but you will still have to take a written theory test as well as a full practical driving test, not just the conversion driving test. Again, that's a brand new thing. We're going to be updating the website within the next couple of days, but just be aware of that. For people who've had a license for between 2 and 5 years, you'll be able to do a driver's license conversion. The entire process is on our website, but in short, you're going to need an eye exam and a physical and a short driving test. You're probably also going to need at least one lesson in order to take the exam. If you've had a license for more than 5 years with a full driver's license, it's an automatic conversion. There's no need to take any exam. If you're under 70, you don't need an eye exam or a physical. Again, the entire process is on our website. You're going to see standard process, which is the one for people with less than 5 years, and expedited process for people with more than 5 years. I'm sorry about the swiveling, just hard to avoid it on a swiveling chair. If you're over 70, you're going to need an eye exam and a physical. The license that is issued is good up to the age of 70. After the age of 70, you will need to renew it every 2 to 5 years. Okay, so that is the driver's license. I'm expecting there's probably a lot of questions.
I answered them.
Questions have been answered. Okay, great. So we're going to move on because we have just a little bit more time, and we're going to talk about housing benefits. These mostly come from Misrad HaShikun, although there is one that does not. The first one up is Arnona. Arnona is municipal property tax. A word about Arnona. The person living in the property, not necessarily the owner, is responsible for paying the Arnona. So if you're renting, it may be something included in the agreement with your landlord. Make sure to check on that. The benefit that you're going to get is up to a 90% discount for one of the first 2 years, or rather one 12-month period within the first 24 months. I say up to 90% for two reasons. First of all, each municipality, it may vary from municipality to municipality. The lowest benefit is that I've ever seen is 70%. Normally I see 90% is the most common. It is also only up to the first 100 square meters of the property. Arnona is determined by the size of the property. The benefit is only on the first 100 square meters. So anything over 100 square meters, you're going to pay full. This is determined by the local municipality. Katinim Chuzrim are not eligible for this benefit, so just be aware of that. In addition, if someone's been living in Israel for a long time, particularly on an A1, before making Aliyah, they also may not be eligible for it. In either way, it's worthwhile going to the municipality and applying for it, as they may have some leeway on it. In order to get this benefit, the apartment must be registered under your name. You must have either an ownership or a contract that is at least 12 months in duration. In addition, if you're sharing an apartment, your name must be on the contract, and you may only be given a portion of the benefit depending on how many people and how many olim are on the contract.
Somebody asked if you can say how many square meters 100 square feet is.
I cannot. Someone asked me if I can say how many square feet 100 square meters is. I can't. I can't do the math right now. We'll try to do the calculations and get back to you on that. Okay, let's talk about rental assistance. Rental assistance is money you get from the government as long as you don't own a property. It starts in the 8th month of your Aliyah and continues through the end of the 5th year of your Aliyah. A couple of words about rental assistance. You can see the amounts are up here. This is in shekel per month. This should be automatic. There are a couple of things that will keep it from being automatic. If you change your marital status after Aliyah, if you are married to someone who is Israeli before Aliyah, If you ever lived in Klita housing, like a Merkaz Klita, an absorption center, when you made Aliyah, if you change your bank account, or if you leave Israel for more than a few weeks at any point. If any of these occur, then your rental assistance will not be automatic. You'll contact your Aliyah advisor to figure out how you can get it restarted or started, as the case may be. In either way, the important thing, that a takeaway that I want you to have from here is that if in the 8th or 9th month of your Aliyah, you don't see this money coming in, immediately make sure to call your Aliyah advisor to discuss how to get it started. If you're in the army and you're a lone soldier, the rate is slightly higher and will extend further after your army service. So this chart will be a little bit different if you are a lone soldier. Okay, I just want to get to the last ones before we finish, and that is the mortgage benefit. The mortgage benefit is the longest lasting benefit. You have 15 years in which to use this benefit. It's up to 150,000 shekel of your mortgage. So it's not its own mortgage. You will be taking out a larger mortgage, and of that mortgage, up to 150,000 shekel will be at this government mandated interest rate, which I believe is now 3%. You usually have 20 to 28 years. I believe it's actually changed, maybe 20 to 30. That's how long the term of the mortgage has to be. Before you use this benefit, make sure to check with your mortgage broker or bank that it's actually worthwhile. The government rate may actually be worse than the rate you can get from the bank. So don't automatically use this. And if you're considering using it, again, talk to your Aliyah advisor beforehand just to make sure that it's worthwhile in your specific case. There's also a purchase tax benefit, but by and large, the purchase tax benefit is not as useful unless you're buying a second property, or if what you're buying is worth over about 4.5 million shekel. Again, that's the kind of thing, if you're looking to buy, make sure you discuss it with your Aliyah advisor, or actually better yet, your real estate lawyer, before deciding immediately to use the Aliyah benefit for purchase tax. Okay, there are questions.
Somebody asked before about the Medicare, and you responded, and then they asked if are you saying that you do not recommend canceling your Medicare? Does that similarly mean you would recommend enrolling in Medicare
Right. Someone asked me if I recommend canceling Medicare. This is a little bit outside of the purview of what we're discussing tonight. What I would tell you is this: before you cancel your Medicare or choose not to enroll in Medicare, make sure you understand how easy or difficult it's going to be to reinstate your Medicare should you need to. Okay, that's the only reason why I would ever caution against doing it. Obviously, no one makes Aliyah with the intention of ever going back, but sometimes reinstating Medicare can be difficult, so I wouldn't want you to cancel it without knowing that. Any other questions?
Is there rental assistance for a family that is making Aliyah that the mother is Israeli and moved to America as a kid?
Okay, so I'm going to go back here to the rental subsidy, and this is a little bit difficult. Rental assistance, if you have a family where people made Aliyah at different times. So let's just take the example of a family where one spouse is an Oleh Hadash and another spouse made Aliyah years ago with their family, then moved back to America, and now is making Aliyah. Technically, they will still have the rental assistance for the family. However, the 5 years starts when that first spouse made Aliyah. So the benefit will technically be over. This is one of the only benefits that works that way, unfortunately. But yeah. Okay. Any other questions? We have another 2 minutes, so I'm going to try to spend it 10 questions.
One second. How's it for a single 30-year-old woman moving who's hardworking and may be willing to convert to?
All right.
This is just another figure out how to. We purchased an apartment in Israel. What is the time frame that we can get reimbursed on the VAT for the?
Okay, if you purchased an apartment before making Aliyah and you want to try to get some of the purchase tax back, basically, as long as you make Aliyah within 2 years of purchasing the apartment, you should be able to get the Israeli rate rather than the non-Israeli rate. And the difference is huge, as much as difference between paying 0 tax and 8% tax. Your real estate lawyer should help you arrange this. The 2 years, again, exactly where the purchase date of the property is. And that's, again, something you really need to speak to your lawyer about to help you figure out exactly when the 2 years starts and ends and what your time frame is. Okay, just to finish off, you can always call our overseas number, 1-866-4-Aliyah. We're standing by tonight for another over 2 hours to answer the questions. I'm going to be answering one of the phones, so you can even ask for me by name. My name is Shlomo. And thank you all for joining me tonight. It was a pleasure, and it was really exciting to be involved with this first ever Aliyah Mega. Again, tonight you can call the 866 number. You can also email mega@nbn.org.il. And yeah, thank you all so much. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of the virtual Mega.